Hello, Dan Alasso with History for Today. And today I have begun taking another look at MarginNote 3 and trying to learn a little bit more about what it does so that I can better use it and better make it part of my note-taking and knowledge management process. So the tools that are available in MarginNote 3 are not at all trivial, but neither are they entirely intuitive to me. So after my initial honeymoon with the app, which was really based very much on the much more useful ways that I could do the things that I was already doing, making highlights and making notes in my PDFs, my usage hasn't really grown or changed that much from there yet. I'm aware that there are more things that I could be doing with MarginNote 3, but I haven't really learned how to actually do them yet. So I'm going to set out to learn more about the things that I can do and then to see if they add value to my note-taking process. So the first step of this for me involves reading the notebook that comes with the app when you download it. And there's a long essay in there which is heavily annotated to demonstrate the variety of different capabilities of the app. And I'm going to read the essay and try to learn to do the various types of annotation. Often when I'm watching videos of people demonstrating their workflows, the demos tend to move a little bit too quickly for me, assuming maybe that I have knowledge or experience that I don't actually have, and in some cases showing really only the features that that particular expert user has chosen to apply to her workflow. This is useful, but it doesn't really give me the opportunity that I need to understand how to do the other things in the app that I might find useful and to decide which ones I want to use and which ones I don't. One of the things that I noticed as I was beginning to read this essay, included in that initial MarginNote 3 notebook, was that there did seem to be a lot of Zettelkasten or how to take smart notes kind of subtext. Some of the things that the essay's author was talking about were analogous to the types of things that I and that other people are trying to do in apps like Roam and Obsidian. And this led me to the obvious question of which is the appropriate app for me for this type of work. Are there some things that I was thinking of doing in Obsidian that I might consider doing, or at least beginning, in MarginNote 3? I've only recently begun looking at the Obsidian forums, but I did notice that there is an Obsidian forum thread about liquid text and MarginNote and similar things. So I should look into that, and maybe some others too. One of the things that I did notice in that thread was that there is a copy note URL capability in one of the drop-down menus in MarginNote 3 that you can use to copy the URL of the note that you're actually working on. And then you can paste that into Obsidian. And according to the forum notes author, you can click on that and it will take you back to MarginNote and actually open that very note and show you that highlight both in your knowledge graph that you've made and also in the original text that you highlighted. So that is the feature that really excited me when I found that it copied over into the Word document that I had abstracted out of my notes that I had made. So this is really the cool glue that is going to link MarginNote to Obsidian for me. And this is exactly what I was looking for. Now, initially, it wasn't clear to me how to do this, how to actually make that pasted MarginNote 3 app URL clickable. And then I figured out that the way you do it is you tell Obsidian that it's HTML by putting the little caret and the little /caret at the front and back of it, to let Obsidian know that when you're in preview mode, you should be able to click on it and it will take you there. And I tried it out and it works. So that is fantastic and I'm very excited about that. So I do think that the idea that the MarginNote 3 notebook can be used in a kind of Zettelish way is interesting. But I'm not entirely convinced that that's the way that I'm going to use it. I agree with the basic ideas, such as that reading is really incomplete without annotation, and that there's power in the way that the notes are extracted, or better yet, abstracted from the readings, and are independent of those readings, but are still linked to them. But I think that goes beyond merely having the note be able to appear in multiple notebooks. I think that the importance of the independence of the notes from their source readings is that they're really the first step in a process of making the notes contained in the reading, or even just inspired by the reading, our own, and taking them from that original source and figuring out a way to make them part of our own thinking. And I have to admit that maybe part of the issue that I'm having deciding what to do with MarginNote 3, how much to do in MarginNote 3, is really how much attention seems to be given to the review and the study aid elements of it, which I'm not really using. I don't really care that much about flashcards. If I could figure out a way to make the flashcards into Zettles, into actual slip notes that would be more powerful than the permanent notes that I'm making in Obsidian, then I might feel differently. I also kind of skip over the whole spaced repetition aspect of many of these apps. Not so much because I'm philosophically opposed to spaced repetition or anything like that. I'm not. But I'm not actually using it right now, and I'm not likely to start in the very near future. Although I should note that I do use Readwise, and I do let it send me 15 highlights a day. But partially the attraction there is that I feel like I'm paring down these highlights and rejecting some of them that I don't think are worthwhile. So that when I do finally go back and process the notes from all of these books that I've read, and I have let Readwise import the highlights from hundreds of Kindle books that I had in my library. When I get around to finally doing that, that having previously rejected some of the ones that I didn't think were useful will make that process easier and less time consuming for me. So what's the appropriate workflow for MarginNote 3 if it's really just a staging area for these ideas where I bring PDFs in and then highlight them and then make graphs of the highlights with my comments and then arrange some of these into notebooks? But then I think maybe that's it. Maybe the next stage is then I review those notes and I move the relevant ones to Obsidian with these special URL links that allow me to go back to the actual documents. And this is a huge benefit to me because then I don't have to do block quoting of actual third-party content into my knowledge graph in Obsidian, which I want to be more of my own ideas and I want to be in my own words. So the big advantage to me is going to be this ability to return to the original text from the Obsidian page where I talk about it. And then I guess the remaining question is, in what ways is MarginNote 3 different from and perhaps better than hypothesis annotations of PDFs that I might store in Zotero? There seem to be a lot of different ways to solve this problem. One of the things that I'm not that concerned about that I have noticed other people in the forum have been talking about are automations. I'm still very leery about the idea of automating my process too much. I did notice a post from Electric Archaeology that was talking about a hypothesis annotation to Obsidian note automation, which sounds very cool. But again, I don't know that I'm going to use it because I don't want to fill up my vault with stuff or blow up my vault with stuff that isn't in my own words and that I'll never be able to get around to processing. I kind of feel like every tool that I see that offers me the opportunity to do that is a temptation. And I'm trying to avoid making that mistake. And I'm not criticizing anybody who uses that as a step in their process and then does the processing and turns the ideas into their own content in Obsidian itself. That's just not the way that I've decided I want to try to use Obsidian. I want Obsidian to actually be the slip box for me, I think. So I will continue to experiment with that, and I'll continue to stumble along and share the things that I'm wondering about. Some of them will probably turn out to be wrong, but you are getting the opportunity at least to see me stumble through the process. So I hope people found that interesting. Thanks for listening. I'll see you again next time.